Hello and welcome back to Learn the Bible in a Year. Today we're covering King Joash repairing the temple in Judah while Elisha gives a final prophecy in Israel. We're also jumping into when Paul was using his Roman citizenship to appeal his case directly to you-know-who, Caesar. Let's jump right into it. In Judah, the boy King Joash was rescued from his murderous grandmother Athaliah and crowned at age 7 under the guidance of Jehoiada the priest. And as long as Jehoiada is alive, Joash does what is right. He initiates a massive project to repair the temple of the Lord, which had fallen into ruin. He sets up a collection chest at the temple entrance, gathering funds directly from the people to pay the carpenters, builders, and masons. The workers are so honest that no accounting is required of them. But when King Hazael of Aram marches towards Jerusalem, Joash strips the temple and the palace of all their sacred objects and gold, sending them as a bribe to Hazael to make them turn away. Later, Joash is assassinated by his own officials in a conspiracy, and his son Amaziah takes the throne. Amaziah immediately executes his father's assassins, but spares their children, adhering to the law of Moses. Amaziah then defeats the Edomites in battle, but grows arrogant. He foolishly challenges the king of Israel to war. The king of Israel warns him to stay home and enjoy his victory over Edom, but Amaziah refuses to listen. Israel crushes Judah in battle, and he captures Amaziah and breaks down the walls of Jerusalem and plunders the temple before leaving. Amaziah is eventually assassinated, just like his father. Meanwhile, in the northern kingdom of Israel, Jehu's son Jehoahaz becomes king and does evil, leading God to hand Israel over to the Arameans. When Jehoahaz begs for help, God provides a deliverer, but the nation remains militarily decimated. His son Jehoash then takes the throne. During Jehoash's reign, the elderly prophet Elisha falls terminally ill. The king visits him, weeping over the impending loss of Israel's greatest spiritual and military asset. Elisha gives the king a final, strange prophetic test. He tells the king to shoot an arrow out the east window, calling it the Lord's arrow of victory over Aram. Then Elisha tells the king to take the remaining arrows and strike the ground. The king strikes the ground 3 times and stops. Elisha is furious, telling the king that he should have struck 5 or 6 times. Because he stopped at 3, he will only defeat Aram 3 times instead of destroying them completely. Elisha dies and is buried. Sometime later, the dead man is hastily thrown into Elisha's tomb during a Moabite raid. The moment the body touches Elisha's bones, the dead man springs back to life. True to Elisha's final prophecy, King Jehoash defeats Aram exactly 3 times, recovering Israel's towns that have been lost. All right, jumping into the New Testament now. The Apostle Paul has been languishing in a Roman prison in Caesarea for 2 full years. Governor Felix kept him there as a political favor to the Jewish leaders and in hopes of a bribe. Now Felix has been replaced by a new governor, Porcius Festus, who is inheriting his complex, exploding case. 3 days after taking office, Governor Festus travels to Jerusalem to meet the local leadership. The chief priests and Jewish leaders immediately bring up Paul's case. After 2 years, their hatred has not cooled at all. They urgently request that Festus transfer Paul to Jerusalem for trial, but it's a trap. They are planning to ambush to assassinate Paul along the road. Festus declines, telling them that Paul will stay in Caesarea and inviting the leaders to come down and present their charges there. A week later, Festus convenes the courts in Caesarea. The Jewish leaders surround Paul, hurling serious charges that they cannot prove, and Paul defends himself simply. He has done nothing wrong against the Jewish law, the temple, or Caesar. Festus, wanting to score some quick political points with his new Jewish constituents, asks Paul if he's willing to go to Jerusalem to stand trial. Paul knows exactly what awaits him in Jerusalem. He refuses, stating that if he is standing before Caesar's courts where he ought to be tried, if he is guilty of a capital crime, he accepts death. But if the charges are false, no one has the right to hand him over to a lynch mob. Then, Paul plays the ultimate legal card. I appeal to Caesar. Festus confers with the council and replies, "You have appealed to Caesar you will go." A few days later, King Agrippa and his sister Bernice arrive in Caesarea to pay their respects to the new governor. Festus, who is out of his depth with his Jewish theology stuff, brings up Paul's case. He explains how the Jewish leaders want Paul executed, but when the trial happened, there was no political or criminal charges. Instead, it was just a dispute about their religion and about a dead man named Jesus, who Paul insisted is alive. Festus admits that he is at a loss on how to investigate this and mentions Paul's appeal to the emperor. King Agrippa, who is well versed in Jewish customs and controversies, is intrigued. He tells Festus he would like to hear this man speak for himself. Festus agrees, promising to set up an audience for the next day. We're finishing up our episode today by reading Psalms 81, verses 1 through 7, and it goes like this. Sing for joy to God our strength. Shout aloud to the God of Jacob. Begin the music, strike the timbrel, play the melodious harp and lyre. Sound the ram's horn to the new moon, and when the moon is full on the day of our festival, this is a decree for Israel, an ordinance of the God of Jacob. When God went out against Egypt, he established his statutes for Joseph. I heard an unknown voice say, I removed the burdens from their shoulders, their hands were set free from the basket. In your distress, you called and I rescued you. I answered you out of a thundercloud. I tested you at the waters of Meribah. Alrighty, that is our episode for today, and I will see all of you cool cats again here tomorrow.